how Clinton destroyed Serbia and paved the way for radical Islam. I'll read you the opening paragraph from Der Spiegel. The Dayton Peace Accords called for the removal of foreign combatants from Bosnia after the Balkans War, but hundreds of Mujahideen fighters stayed, and today they are successfully spreading their fundamentalist Islamist views. And by the way, they built a very large mosque in Sarajevo with Saudi money. What's strange here is that the Muslims of Bosnia were rather peaceful for a very long period of time, and the Islamists are trying to turn them back to 7th century Muslim beliefs. There's a fight going on in Bosnia between modern Muslims and the throwbacks being funded by Saudi Arabia. And the throwbacks are using violence against the moderate Muslims, who sometimes drive by the throwbacks and wave beer bottles at them to say, you're not turning the clock back on us. But Saudi Arabia is funding this Wahhabi sect of cancer. This cancerous Islamic sect of Wahhabism is being spread around the world, right here in America. They fund CAIR. Make no mistake about who they are. Make no mistake about it. Now, it is only a matter of time until the government finally recognizes that they're not going to win this battle through rhetoric alone. It is only a matter of time until you, the listener, realize that you're losing the war. The Muslims are winning the war. The Muslims who are radical are winning the war. And by the way, CAIR has been quoted, the head of it, as saying, sure, I'd like to see Sharia law in America. He's not going to force it down your throat. He said he's going to do it by slow increments. They're winning. They're winning. Now, during World War II, the Nazis worked on plans to build the America bomber, and it was an airplane specifically devised to fly suicide missions into Manhattan skyscrapers, says the article Nazis and Islamists by Paul Belin. Albert Speer, the Nazi Minister for Armaments, recalled in his diary, quote, "It was almost as if Hitler was in a delirium when he described to us how New York would go up in flames. He imagined how the skyscrapers would turn into huge blazing torches, how they would crumble while the reflection of the flames would light the skyline against the dark sky. You see," he writes, "Hitler hated Manhattan. It was because, he said, the center of world Jewry. Less than 60 years later, Hitler's plans were executed by Muslim immigrants living in Germany. At the 2003 trial of the network around Mohammed Atta, the pilot who flew into the WTC, Shahid Nichols, a German convert to Islam, and a friend of Atta, said that the Islamists had targeted Manhattan because, quote, it is the center of world Jewry and the world of finance and commerce controlled by it. The parallels between Nazism and Islamism are overwhelming, yet the subject is a taboo. When last March, the German historian Matthias Kunzel, author of Jihad and Jew Hatred, Islamism, Nazism, and the Roots of 9/11, was to give a lecture at the University of Leeds in Britain, the university authorities canceled the lecture after threats from Muslim students. He then goes on in the article and says there is a war going on between the jihadists and the West. We are losing the battle because, as so often in man's history, our political leaders think that they're still fighting the previous war. Europeans who warn against the danger of Islamism are considered and sometimes even prosecuted as xenophobes, racists, and even neo-Nazis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm warning you that you're losing the war against radical Islam. They're putting the noose around your neck and they're tightening it. Let's go to San Diego. Tony, you're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Dr. Savage. Just a quick question. My parents, who are both Sicilians, they're coming in from New York to visit me in San Diego. I'm a Marine station at Camp Pendleton, and we're taking a trip out to San Francisco, and my dad is a big lover of Chinese food, and besides Italian food as well. I was wondering if you could recommend any good Italian and Chinese restaurants in San Francisco, and based on those recommendations, we'll kind of plan our trip around that.
Isn't that nice? Well, you know what I'm going to do, Tony? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to recommend a Chinese called Shanghai 1930. And you got to tell them when you make the reservation that I sent you. But what I'm going to do is ask one of the Italian restaurant owners of San Francisco to offer you and your parents a free meal. And when they do, if you'll leave us your email address, Tony, we'll send it to you, and you're going to eat for free. Because if you're one of our Marine heroes, you're one of my heroes. Okay, Tony?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
But don't leave. I want you to get. You have an email address, Tony?
Yes, I do.
All right, give it to my producers. Then we're going to give 5 minutes to an Italian restaurant owner in San Francisco to call, offering a free meal to those to that Marine family. How's that? And then maybe we'll give them a plug. Otherwise, I'm not giving out any names. No freebies. Let them do something for somebody like I do. That's all. What else you want to talk about? Any other topic? You don't want to talk about the radical Islamists amongst us? I don't blame you. You'd rather put your head in the sand. But you know what? You're in good company. I was watching Ken Burns' great documentary on World War II. And you know, America was exactly the same in the 30s. They didn't want to hear what was going on. They thought that they'd be spared the carnage of Europe. In the documentary, he shows how the little movie houses across America, and really it touches you deeply. They go to see a movie on a Saturday, and the newsreels would show the carnage, for example, of the Spanish Civil War, the carnage of Germany invading Poland, and it showed how the average American thought that they would be spared getting involved in World War II. They didn't want to be involved in it. They figured it wouldn't touch them, that we were isolationist at that time. The country was actually pacifist and isolationist. And then they interviewed different people, and they start to talk about what finally turned them, you know, in the war. And this I'll never forget. There's one guy from Sacramento who says he was a church-going guy, and he goes into the military before World War II was declared, before the attack on Pearl Harbor. And he says, I signed up for the Philippines because I figured that it was so far away it wouldn't be touched by the war. Well, lo and behold, the same day that Pearl Harbor is attacked by the Japanese imperialists, they also bomb the Philippines, and they invade a portion of the Philippines, and they slowly start to strangle the Philippines, and the U.S. troops are moving further and further away from the point of contact because they're losing. And this guy says, I was raised as a church-going Christian, and frankly, I was taught, thou shalt not kill. And he said, I didn't want to kill anybody. He said, well, one day the Japanese planes came over, and they bombed. They're bombing and strafing, and he says, my friend and I jumped into a ditch. And he said the Japanese Zero did a turn and came back, flew low over us and dropped another bomb, and it hit my friend. And there was nothing left of him, he said, except his wristwatch in his hand. And he said he looked up and saw the pilot smirking and looking down upon him. He said at that moment, he thought of what Patton said. He said to the men, don't worry, you'll know what to do when you see your friend's guts hanging out of his body. And I am telling you, sure, we're all wanting to avoid the war with the radical Islamists. Sure, we want to turn our head away from this ugly, disgusting takeover of the world. We all want to turn away from it. We don't want to know about it. But we all know in our heart of hearts it's going to touch us again. It touched us, remember, on 9/11/2001. Remember that. Okay, hello? They already struck us. They struck us already, you know what I'm saying? And any military family in the country is being touched by radical Islam. It's only a matter of time until the draft is reinstituted in America. It's going to have to be done. And the day the draft is instituted, there'll be draft riots in the country, stimulated and fomented by the ACLU and the other fellow traveler anti-Americans. We know that. We'll overcome them. They'll be jailed or they'll be run out of the country. There will be a draft in this country, and when that day comes and Main Street is drawn into the war, I can guarantee you that the Islamists amongst us are either going to leave the country or they're going to be arrested by the FBI. It's only a matter of time, and you'll see that I was ahead of my time again.
Yeah. You're listening to an encore broadcast of The Michael Savage Show.